Hey YouTube. Hey Daryl, welcome to the stream, man. Hey Joel, welcome to the stream. How you guys doing this afternoon? Morning, as the case may be. Oh, is the sound okay? Once again, I am bereft of topics. Thanks, Daryl. Hey Pleco Whisperer, welcome to the stream. Joel says he's good wandering around in the bush listening to this. Sound is good. Okay. Well, enjoy your wandering through the bush, man. That sounds like fun. You guys are just getting into warmer weather down there. We're just getting into colder weather here, and man, the cold is really affecting me this winter. I feel like I've been drugged through a knothole. My frozen shoulder on my left side is really acting up. I could barely move my left arm without it really causing me problems. I'm glad I went to Peru when I did. Before this left shoulder started really acting up, I'd have been dead in the water in Peru if the shoulder had been like this then. But I think the colder weather is starting to really smack me. I think I spent quite a bit of time last stream talking about what we need to do to get ready for winter, and I think that's a valid subject for those of us in the northern hemisphere whose weather is changing to the colder right now. We really need to think about and start taking steps towards preparing for winter. I got the heater ready, and we have had temperatures in the low 40s and almost 30s overnight here, and the way the weather is affecting us here in the United States, and I would have to guess across Europe, northern Europe too, it's really starting to change how the weather comes in. We've had a jet stream for most of my life. The jet stream has been right along the Canadian United States border, and it has always moderated our winters here in the United States because it pretty much blocked the big chunks of cold air that were coming down from the Arctic. And now the jet stream is down around the southern coast of the United States. So cold weather just pours in. It comes from the Arctic and nothing stops it. It just marches its way right down through the United States. I heard somebody describing the current jet stream. Hey Pam, 54 Punchy, welcome to the stream. I heard on the news them describing the current jet stream as being really wavy and actually turning on itself in a few places as it crosses the United States, and I think it has weakened a great deal, and our weather is really undergoing some serious changes. So I would advise everyone in the northern hemisphere and the United States that we may have some pretty severe cold this year. We could reach temperatures that we don't normally get down to pretty easily this year. So just kind of keep that in the back of your thoughts that things could get a whole lot colder than we're used to here. I think in the western United States, the El Nino is going to cause temperatures to not get quite so bad. 54 Punchy is saying we're supposed to get a high of 18 and a low of -2 tomorrow. Welcome to the stream, Mr. D's Tanks and More. Yeah, that makes my high 30s seem pretty wimpy. Pam, I'm sorry you guys are supposed to get so cold, but it's just easy in this day and age. Daryl says last year was a terrible winter in Illinois. It wasn't so bad here in southern Indiana. We had a long stretch of really cold temperatures, but we didn't drop quite as low as it did a lot of places. But I'm afraid this year we're probably going to get smacked with it. All the weather predictions that I've seen for this area show a brutal cold weather zone right around the Great Lakes, not Gold Lakes, but the Great Lakes, and it's supposed to be in the sub-zeros a lot. Daryl says think November was worse than January here. Yeah, that's kind of my recollection of it. I felt like we got hit hard early, and I think there's still conjecturing about what the actual snowfall and blizzard conditions are going to be here this year. I think it's still we're still here in southern Indiana. We're kind of still in the battle zone between ice and snow, where we could get ice storms, or we could get rainstorms, or we could get snowstorms. Hey, Oddball Aquatics, welcome to the stream. We are talking generally about winter hitting here in the United States and in the Northern Hemisphere. Those in the Southern Hemisphere are just about to get their spring and summer, or are already in spring, well into spring, and are heading for summer. Daryl says the local paper said that we might be warmer than normal, but most say otherwise. Oddball Aquatics says we had some sleet yesterday in Indianapolis, and that sounds like it to me. It felt like we had a cold front come through, and it felt like snow. It really did to me. And yeah, Indianapolis is a couple hundred miles north of me. I lived there for 5 or 6 years. It's where I met my wife, and I finally said to her after 4 or 5 years up there, I said, "Honey, we need to move south." And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, I'm just tired of seeing the same snow that was there, fell 3 months ago, piled up on the streets every winter." And she said, "Okay, well, I'll try to find a job that's more in the south." And I said, Houston would be nice, or Florida, or maybe Arizona, or Southern California. All those would be nice. And as far as I could get her south was right on the Indiana-Kentucky border. We live just across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. So there is a very large difference weather-wise between here and Indianapolis. You know, I'm grumbling because that's as far south as I could get her to go. Oddball, we lived in southern Indianapolis, um, just before you get out of the city limits, going towards the south, was where we lived. And Indy is a remarkably nice town. Oddball Aquatic says, Dwayne, the best area to live around Indiana. Brown County area is beautiful. Yeah. I, I've enjoyed being this far south. You know, even though it's not that far south, in the spring and summer, we're almost a zone warmer than Indianapolis is, and it's basically the same thing in the winter. We're literally a zone warmer than Indianapolis is, and I've always been a southern boy. I was raised in Florida and Alabama. I lived in Huntsville for a long time as a child. Arkansas, Tennessee. That's the places that I lived most of my life. But for the past 20 years now, I've been in Indiana, and I miss the South. It gets too hot. I've spent a lot of years in Texas too, and it gets too hot down there in the summertime. But when it comes wintertime, I miss it. I miss those. Hey, Kevin Hyatt, welcome to the stream, man. I miss those winters that last from January until February, and you might get 2 snows out of them, and then pretty much it starts warming back up. Mr. D's Tanks and More says born and raised in Indiana, and Oddball Aquatics says lived in Indiana all my life. Pam says we already got our first snow here. Usually our last snowstorm is the end of May. Yeah, there's a lot of Hoosiers. There's a lot of Hoosiers on YouTube. You guys all know Lucas lives in Indianapolis. So there's a lot of us Hoosiers on YouTube. And winter is always seems... Hey, Justin Shepard, welcome to the stream. And Justin says he's been here for 30 years or so. Well, who knew we were a Hoosier channel? Winter, yeah, Lucas is one of my favorite people in the hobby. Lucas overworks himself to death all the time doing his hobby, but that's the way Lucas is. He throws himself into everything 200%. And that's a great way to be. Joel, a Hoosier is a person from Indiana. And I've got to admit, I'm not exactly sure where the term Hoosier comes from. Daryl, yes, I did finally get Lucas to... I've been talking and emailing and meeting Lucas at various places for a long time, and gosh, I say long time, I mean 3 or 4 years. Lucas's fish room is remarkable. It is pretty much like you see it on YouTube videos, but it is taken in as a whole. It is something much more The whole is more than the sum of its parts. Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the stream, man. If you're on the road lurking, you keep your eyes on the road, buddy. It's much more important to me that you drive than to participate. I appreciate you dropping in. Um, Now, Jeremy, on the other hand, lives in Ohio, and that's where Jimmy used to live too. And I got up there to go ahead and meet Jimmy to help him sell some of his tanks and fish to me before he moved out to California to go to work with Corey, or to live and work with Corey out there in California. I say California, Oregon. And northern Ohio strikes me as a little bit more tundra-like than even Indianapolis did. So I'm guessing, Jeremy, you guys are going to have a brutal winter this winter. They're really calling for. Looks like my stream is dragging a little bit. Yeah, Joel, if I'm still on here. Let's see. Let's go to stream health. 342 stream health is healthy, but I'm showing my video lagging. Yeah, he doesn't really ever sleep. Joel, you'd love Lucas's fish room. It's basically his house has 2 levels. The upstairs is on the level of the living quarters of the house, and he's got a big quarantine rack in one room in the house, and upstairs, and he's got several tanks scattered throughout his house. Upstairs, but downstairs it is basically every room as full as it possibly can be. The garage, the kitchen downstairs. He's even got fish stuff in the bathroom that's downstairs. He doesn't have tanks, but he's got all of his nets and stuff like that. Basically, the whole downstairs of his house. And it's not a split level, it's 2 levels, but he lives in a really hilly neighborhood, and the hill where his house is basically is hilled up to, when you walk in his front door, you walk in on the 2nd level, and there's a doorway down below that you can get into the lower level. And it is a mass of tanks, and every one of those tanks has some remarkable fish and plants both in it, or shrimp and fish and plants in it. It's basically just teeming with life. Jeremy says, born and raised in Michigan. Jimmy is in Washington. Okay, all right, Oregon, Washington. As far as winters, oh, I know all too well. Yeah, it's gotten really cold. Yeah, the dungeon, Joel, but it's not really a dungeon. It's more of a mad scientist lab. His downstairs is basically a fish nerd's mad scientist lab, stretching from one end of the building to the other. And it's quite remarkable, and something that anyone, it'd be like going to a really high-end fish store, although he doesn't have the gigantic tanks and ponds inside that maybe a really high-end fish store would have. but he has everything else. My wife and I wandered around for about 2 hours in that in those rooms, and he walked us around for a while, and you can see that on my walkthrough of his fish room. And Jeremy has one. A lot of people have walked through and done videos, and you can really basically see what's going on. Okay, does anybody have any questions or something to bring up? A topic for discussion? Um, I thought about, uh, unfortunately, politics is really weighing heavily on me right now. Our politics here in the United States. And I don't want to get into the politics, although I could spend 20 hours talking about it. But what I would like to say about all of that is get yourself registered and please vote. And that has nothing to do with how you believe or what you believe or no, Joel, I really can't. The fish keeping hobby is by nature an expensive hobby, and my experience has been that a lot of the people that are really highly placed in this hobby are Republicans, and that they've got a lot of money, and that is a way that helps them maintain their highly placed part of this hobby. They're the ones that can afford to go do things, collecting trips and fly all over the world and do those kinds of things. And my politics don't go that direction at all. I'm sure if any of you have followed me for very long, you will understand that I'm for the environment. Kevin says he's one of those our votes don't count people, but I vote every election. Well, the people in the rest of the world are not probably as involved in American politics, but I would recommend that people all over this planet get out, get registered, get involved in your local politics, get involved in the world politics. We need every hand on deck. Those those of you that pay attention to science will have no doubt heard the latest warnings from the IPCC group of the UN that unless we change our energy usage completely by 2030, and that is 12 years out, that we will have irreversibly changed the climate on this planet to the bad. And we just had a hurricane hit in Florida that was the most powerful storm that's ever touched land in the United States. And that's what climate change is going to do. It is going to increase the temperature of our planet steadily. It is going to cause evaporation of water all over our planet, which will end up in our oceans. It is going to cause melting of our ice caps, which will inundate our coastal areas. All of the rivers that empty into the ocean will become inundated with salt water, pushing further and further inland. The coastal areas will go underwater. Island nations will go underwater. We will stop the Gulf Stream, the flow of the Gulf Stream. when there is no ice left in the Arctic Circle to melt and start the Gulf Stream, then there will be no flow of the Gulf Stream down the eastern coast of the United States, where it picks up heat and then crosses the ocean and comes north along the coast of England and Norway and that part of northern Europe, where it gives off that heat and it moderates the temperatures in those areas, and then it comes back across Iceland and starts again with ice melt. When there's no ice to melt in the Arctic, there will be no Gulf Stream. There will be no moderation of the temperatures in northern Europe and the northern United States. The current will stop. If we gain more than 1 degree temperature more. Okay, so enough said about that. That's the side that I'm on, the side of science and the side of the environment. And I hope that people will get out and vote wherever they live and try to come down on the side of the hobby, which is the side of science and the side of the environment. And that's all I'll say about it. It's pointless for me to rant endlessly about what I feel about politics, because everybody's feelings about politics are just as valid as mine are. Mr. D's Tanks and More says, I'm going to get a 125-gallon tank. Thinking about getting different types of dwarf rainbow fish. Any suggestions? Well, praycocks are a really good one. My wife and I keep several of those. And although they're very small for 125 gallon, I would go with any of the blue eyes, any of the Aru 2s, any of the Northern Australia, Indonesia breeds of rainbow fish that are and the exact name is escaping me right now, and we've got a tank full of them that we got from Lucas in there in the living room. But those fish are gorgeous, the tiny little rainbows. In a 125 gallon, you could probably put a school of 15 praycocks and probably 3 or 4 different schools of about 25 of the really dwarf rainbows. There are some that have incredible finnage. The Aru 2s are gorgeous looking, but there are some of those rainbows, the little tiny rainbows, that are just amazing, incredible to look at. Most people probably wouldn't put them in a 125-gallon tank because they're so small. But if you had 3 or 4 different schools of 20 or 30 of each of those kinds of fish swimming around in a tank, and then a bunch of praycocks, I think it would be remarkable. Joel says he feels more involved in American politics than New Zealand thanks to social media. Well, Joel, I know that America is pretty much a laughing stock in the world right now. And when the current junta was put into office, the Queen of England said, so much for the experiment. But we're not out of it just yet. Some of us have just begun to fight. So we've covered winter in America. I would definitely recommend looking up that song, Winter in America, for those of you of a political persuasion. Um, we've talked about Joel says, haha, things aren't as simple as they seem, and the ability for the current situation to prevail is probably an overall necessary evil. Well, Kevin Hyatt says, I've been getting super excited in my fish room. I've got my L236s trapping again, and one of my last batch looks like he is going to be super yellow. That's awesome. I still have not gotten my L260s to breed yet. I'm of the mind now that I may literally have gotten 6 females. I bought 2 wild caughts and I bought 4 juveniles when I got this started little over 2 years ago. Yeah, Joel, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly is pretty much a pretty apt description of it. I have had one egg clutch out of my L260s, and it was just a female laying eggs. So by herself. I know that I have females, but I have no idea whether I have a viable male. Now, I've got mine in a 110-gallon Oceanic, which those of you that know that tank, and it's a much older tank, know that it is very tall and very thin. It's not very far across, and it's 4 foot long. So my fish are literally spread out over a 4 foot tank. And I'm beginning to wonder if I'm having a problem with I've got the caves on one end, and I've got a ton of Texas Holy Rock in all the rest of it, because I knew pretty much that I was going to be running a lot of RO water into the tank, and that I wanted there to be still some calcium in the water. And so I went ahead and used Texas Holy Rock because it is basically calcium rich. Now, all of my Texas Holy Rock came from the 70s when I lived in Texas. I found an excellent deal on Texas Holy Rock back in the day. I think I got 80 pounds of Texas Holy Rock for about $25. And that's how you could get it back then if you bought it in big lots. And I drove my pickup truck to a guy's house, and he loaded 80 pounds in the back of my truck. He let me pick a few pieces, but mostly he just loaded it into the back of the truck. Good luck on the tank, man. Good luck on that tank, Mr. D. And Texas Holy Rock is like Swiss cheese. It's got a great deal of holes in it. It's like those candles you make where you throw a bunch of ice cubes in a candle mold, and you pour your hot wax in, and the ice cubes themselves cause there to be holes inside the candle wax. The candle comes out and it's got lots of holes inside of it. And that Texas Holy Rock I've had for almost 40 years. And it's been in tanks everywhere. So a lot of the easy to chelate calcium has come out of that Texas Holy Rock. and it has a patina on it now. It's long ago had a patina on it, and I don't think it dumps quite as much into the TDS into the water as it would have if it was brand new. Kevin Hyatt says, I have my group of 5 in a 30 long, dirted and planted tank, only 2 caves and large pieces of driftwood. Yeah, they love driftwood. They really enjoy grazing off of it. Justin Shepard says, I keep 3 different guppy tanks, 35 gallon, 46 gallon, 20 long, to feed my long-nosed gar and 4 yellow bellies, bullhead catfish. Yeah, I've kept native catfish before myself. They are voracious eaters. They will eat anything. I kept a blue catfish with 3 giant pacus in a 150 gallon one time. Kevin says, I found only having 2 or 3 caves forces the males to claim a home, and the females go in for their visits when ready. Justin says, love Mad Toms, hard to find. Yeah, they are. They're getting to be harder and harder to find. You can't really find them up here. This was down in Texas that I caught mine. I caught a really little one fishing. I took my boys fishing, and I caught a really little Mad Tom, and I thought, what the heck? I'm going to bring that guy back and put him in that 150 gallon. And he was stealing dog food from the pacus before long and eating the whole thing himself. So those cats are an interesting keep. I know that in other countries they keep our native catfish quite a lot. Hey, Mob Guppy, welcome to the stream, man. We are just shooting the shit is basically what I would call it, because we're not really, I don't really have a topic here. I'm just hitting a bunch of highlights and talking to people about the points they bring up in the stream. So if you've got questions, Mob Guppy, I'd love to give them a shot. I may not know anything about it, or I may have no personal experience with it, but I'd be more than happy to give it a go and see if I can come up with it. Oddball Aquatic said, made it back. Sorry, at work and customers and such. Oddball, always take care of your responsibilities before worrying about being in a live stream. Hey, VB23. I didn't see you in here earlier. Welcome to the stream. Oh, that's the thing that I wanted to talk about. Thank you for bringing it up, VB23. I was casting around thinking about something to talk about, really. And going to AE is the topic that I came up with. The idea being that if you've never been to AE before, there you go. If you have never been to AE before, you might miss out on a lot of the remarkable things that are going on there. 6 days, so yeah, next weekend. I'd like to tick off a few of the things that I discovered at AE when I went last year. It's a lot of money, and if you're not going to be there for the full 3 days, then it might not be worth your money. But I would always recommend that you catch the speakers They are remarkable. I haven't seen the actual lineup this year, but I can say without checking that the speakers that will give talks at AE are some of the best in the world, and every one of those talks is a talk that you should be there for. Hey, King Lee. Excuse me. How's King Lee doing? Welcome to the stream, man. I saw that new batch of guppies you got in. No, King Lee, I'm not this year. I spent all my money going to Peru, and I promised my wife that she could do her bucket list trip next, and hers is Tahiti. So we're probably going to be spending all of our money for the next 4 or 5 years just to get her to Tahiti for her bucket list trip. So I've said that I think that you should make time out of the busy AE weekend schedule to at least hit several of the speakers that are there. I was just overjoyed with the people that I got to meet. There is a council that has to do with working on or against legislation in the United States Congress that has to do with curtailing or helping our hobby and the stores that support our hobby. I went to that talk that they had. There was a panel of really big highlights in the hobby there. And because I was in there, I got to sit and watch Heiko Blair come in and take that panel to task in a way I had no idea of ever having thought about taking them to task. He basically tore them apart and blew them out of the water. And that is the kind of thing that will make an event. It's the kind of thing where you see your heroes and even your enemies in the hobby interact in such a way that it feels like it's everybody sitting down together at a pizza place and chatting across the table. And that is, to me, one of the most remarkable things about a conference like AE, ACA, OCA. There's a lot of those big conventions and events where there is a plethora of really important people, either new or old or scientific or collecting. All of these different kinds of minds get together, and you can go to a talk and get to the area early before the doors open, and all of those people that are waiting with you to go into that talk are probably highlights in the hobby, are probably people that you need to know, that you need to become friends with, that you need to add to your circle so that you can confab with them about things. You can carry on a conversation through email after you each go home. There is a incredible bunch of people that are interested in the same talk and the same person giving that talk that you're interested to going to. You know, if you will get that schedule out and go through and underline the people you really want to see, the topics that are really of interest to you, there's 500 people doing exactly the same thing across AE saying, this is who I want to go see. That's the talk I want to see. I can't miss this. I can't miss this person. And all of the people waiting outside or who have already entered the venue where that person is giving a talk are people that you need to get to know. Some of them you will recognize. Some of them, if you've studied people in the hobby, you will have an idea who they are by who they're talking with, what their little circle they're with. Or you will meet people like Gary Wang, like Wayne Liebel, like the list goes on and on and on and on of who these people are. Ingo Seidel. Anytime you're in an area where you can talk to one of these people, Rusty Wessel, people from the ACA, you, Scott, and the Queen of Cichlids, you need to make contact with these people, even if you only walk up to them when they're not busy doing something else and introduce yourself and shake their hand and stand there for a second and maybe say a few pleasantries and move on, because you will have made a connection with these people, and at some point in the future that connection that you made may become invaluable. You may have a burning question that must be answered, and the only person that probably can answer it is that person that you walked up to and shook their hand and introduced yourself to at the conference. And there may have been 2,000 people walk up and shake their hands and introduce them. But chances are, if you find an email for them and email them your question and add that I got a chance, I was so honored to get a chance to shake your hand and introduce myself at AE before your talk, it will become a human connection for them, not just this cold internet thing where it's just somebody who you have not met. Those kinds of things are invaluable. The people, the friends you can make. You may find people from your own state, your own town, that are there doing exactly what you're doing that you never even knew before. They may be some hermit breeder that only comes out for certain conferences to see certain people speak. And by making that connection with them, you create a human connection that will allow you to deepen and broaden that friendship. So that's just one thing. That's just speakers and the people that are also going to see those talks. And that is a remarkably valuable thing for anyone that's going to AE to take advantage of, that a lot of people don't. A lot of people go to AE, they go in, they walk through, they look at all the pretty fish, they look at all the tanks, maybe they go to the seal tank and watch the seals for a show, and then they go home and they never make these connections. A secondary thing that you can do at AE if you pay attention is connect with sellers, companies that are in our hobby producing things, lights, filters, hardscape, substrate. All these companies are there at AE trying to connect with potential customers. If you go around, even if it's just a few of the ones that you're interested in, if you go around and make a connection with a few of those vendors, you may be in line for all kinds of goodies. You may be in line for all kinds of important stuff that you will eventually need in your hobby that you can't find anywhere else. Um, you may log on to a, a breeder of shrimp that has breeds and strains that are not available anywhere else in the world, and that you will have a personal connection with that person, and you will get to, hey, Bob Kaler's Fish Hobby, welcome to the stream. You will have a chance to make a connection that can last you for a lifetime with a vendor, someone who is selling products. Now, my experience of AE in Chicago, the last one, was that there are very few vendors that are actually there selling. There were some shrimp vendors and there were some fish vendors that did have a few tanks that they were selling out of. And there were also plant vendors. Dustin was there from Dustin's Fish Tanks. But most of the people that are there as vendors are not really trying to sell you anything. They are trying to show you their new products. They're trying to demonstrate to you what they have for sale. Daryl says, I hear we may all be wearing red shirts again. Yeah, Daryl, that's a good thing. I think Corey had a lot of shirts left over from the last AE. So, yeah, I got 4 of them. I got one for my wife, and I got... Corey said, look, I've got a ton of these 3Xs, and no one will wear them, so take a few 3Xs. So I got some of those, and I got Corey to sign one, and I got... Rob and his lovely wife to sign the other one. And that's another thing. Those people that you have met through the Fish Fam on YouTube, even if you really aren't aware of who they are, I got to meet Fish Dad there. I got to meet Victor. I got to meet a lot of people that I really didn't have a personal connection with through my YouTube and through being in other chats where I had seen them around. I didn't have a real personal connection with those people. King Lee was there. I got to meet King Lee and his wife. I didn't really have a personal one-to-one connection with those people until going to AE and meeting them. And the way to do that is to be in one of these groups, like the Aquarium Co-op and Flip Aquatics booth were, and to make all these different connections with all these people. You know, it's a place where you can meet people that have exactly the same kind of mindset that you have about fish keeping, about our hobby, and those connections are invaluable. There's no amount of money that you could pay that would be as meaningful as making friends out of the Fish Fam. The people that we all see and hear from in all these different streams and on all these different videos that make comments. When you get to spend time face to face with them, it changes your paradigm about who these people are. I got to spend quite a bit of time talking with Jeremy, Sergeant's Fish Tanks, and his lovely wife, and and it I had always felt like that I knew Jeremy and that he was someone who had a great deal in common with me. But when we got to spend time face to face and talk to each other one on one, I understood that Jeremy was about as close to my way of thinking in the fish hobby as anybody I've met in a long time. Now Lucas is one of those people too, but Jeremy has the same no nonsense amount of experience that makes my feelings towards his experience in the hobby feel very similar to my own. Now, Jeremy's not as old as I am, and yet his experience in the hobby outweighs mine in a lot of instances. So I feel like Jeremy and I got to know each other in a very short amount of time. Just in spending 10 or 15 minutes talking to each other, we'd meet each other in the hallways, we'd meet each other coming in and out, we'd meet each other at the co-op booth, we'd meet each other at a different venue that we were at, and just those small amounts of interactions made me understand how important Jeremy is to me in this fish fam, because he is someone that I have a great deal of simpatico with, someone that's important to me. Real thing for you fish tanks, welcome to the stream. Thankfully, someone brought up the subject of AE, and I had done a little bit of thinking about this subject beforehand, and this is as good a time as any to get into it. By my next broadcast, the people that are going to AE will already be at AE enjoying it. Another one of the benefits of getting to know people personally from the fish fam and people that are outside of the fish fam is that there is a lot of social interaction that goes on at AE, where a bunch of people go get dinner together, a bunch of people go to a fish store together, a bunch of people sit down to eat at a restaurant together. There are a lot of, you all gang up and go to a bowling alley, you all gang up and go to a movie. Those are the kind of bonding opportunities that a event like AE offers to people, and that just gives you a deeper chance to connect with a lot of people, a chance to really get to know them better, to sit down over dinner, share a meal, break bread together. Those are the kinds of things sorry, that can really deepen and widen your experience of a convention like AE. I'm kind of antisocial by nature, so I didn't get invited to or didn't go to a lot of the dinners or get-togethers or hangouts that a lot of other people did. They do hangouts in rooms at the hotel. But I managed to meet a lot of people going to the hotel restaurant and eating my breakfast in the morning, going to outside restaurants and getting food. It was remarkable how many fish people I met just walking from the venue back to my hotel or from my hotel back to the venue all day long. Most of you know I'm a smoker. I would go out and smoke on the smoker's ledge, and there would be 15 or 20 other fish keepers that also had the habit of smoking all there, and we would sit and talk while smoking, and then we'd go back inside. Yeah, Joel, they're not big enough. American food portions are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's now basically a dab on the plate instead of a real portion. But I guess it's good for me. Hashtag fish smokers. I wouldn't recommend anybody join that organization. You're far better off if you never go out on the smoker's ledge and hang out with fish smokers. But what I'm trying to say is that there are so many opportunities at a place like AE to rub shoulders with, to break bread with, to go out in the smoker's ledge and smoke with. That G Bear, welcome to the stream, and I am not going this year. I spent all of my money for several years to come going to Peru, G Bear. That was a lot of conventions going to Peru. Went by the boards that I'm not going to be able to afford to go to. Our money is being saved now for my wife's bucket list trip, which is to Tahiti. And last check, the plane tickets were about, it's probably going to cost about 10 or 15 grand to get her to Tahiti and back again. Especially once she starts looking at all the pearls. It may take 20 grand to get her there and back again. All right, guys, we're rounding the top of the hour. I just want you to understand that yes, AE is going to be a bunch of fish and a bunch of tanks and a bunch of screaming kids and a bunch of vendors hawking wares, but there is so much more. If you just open yourself up to the possibilities while you're there and do your due diligence to check out everything that's around you, including the vendors, including the contest, including the raffles, including the including the contests, like the shrimp contest last year, the ACA contest, and the ACA people that are there. It was Scott and his wife last year, but I think it's going to be someone different this year. I'm not sure. But I wouldn't doubt that Scott and his wife will be there this year as well. I would highly recommend talking to Scott. If you don't know him, look him up as the King and Queen of Cichlids. That's he and his wife. Scott is a remarkable person. I just want you to go to AE, if you do, with an open mind about all the people that are around you. There's probably not one of them that's around you that you don't need to have as a friend. So that resource alone is remarkable. And it comes at meals after the event. It comes at gatherings in hotel rooms after or during the event. There are a lot of things going on at AE that you don't see on the surface, and you need to make some connections. I would say that the speakers are the best thing that there is at a convention like AE, and that you need to avail yourself. You know, you say, oh, I don't want to get up at 8 o'clock and be there on the for the talk of South American cichlids. But you will get more good out of getting up out of bed and making it to that talk than anything else you do at AE. And there's going to be some wonderful things to do at AE. So I just want people to go into AE with an open mind towards all of the potential possibilities. And we haven't even scratched the surface. There are a ton of more things to do at AE that we did not talk about here in this chat. So I'm just trying to give a few pointers for the stuff that goes on. All right, guys, thank you for spending a little part of your Saturday or Sunday, as the case may be. Um, G-Bear says the way that place is designed is awesome. You don't have to leave the area, movies, hotels, shopping. Yep. Mob Guppy says I will be there. I had a key person on vacation and his assistant ended up with a family medical thing, so I was doing triple duty. I have to be there next time at Daryl Dimer. Joel says he's always up at 6, even on a Sunday, hence making it a long year. Yeah, I know the elderly part, Joel. Believe me. All right, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for VB23 for reminding me about AE, which was a subject that I wanted to talk about and had completely forgot. I hope we crossed some topic here in this rant chat that was worth it for you to spend some of your time here. And you guys have good luck with your fish. And anybody that's going to AE, enjoy the hell out of it. Really have a good time. And Pam's beyond elderly, and we know exactly what that is. And as Pam says, everyone have a great weekend. And good luck with your fish, guys. See you next week.